Before Graham Potter was announced as West Ham head coach, it was rumoured that he wanted a 2.5-year contract from the club, but we were originally only willing to offer a 6-month contract. However, that contract would have clauses in it, and if he was to achieve certain things, he would automatically trigger a 2-year extension. Now, those metrics were never revealed, and we still don't know which it is, whether it's a 6-month contract or a 2.5-year contract. Graham Potter has refused to discuss it, and the West Ham board have also refused to discuss it, and I don't have an issue with that. I believe it's a 2.5-year contract because of what Karen Brady said in her column. She said the board were unanimous. This is the man they wanted. They wanted to bring Graham Potter to West Ham. They're confident that Graham Potter is going to bring silverware to West Ham, and because of that, they did not hesitate in giving him the 2.5-year deal he wanted. Now, I don't necessarily believe it. I think there was a bit of hesitation, perhaps not from Karen, but from others on the board of West Ham. But as a result of that column, I feel confident that it's a 2.5-year contract straight, that there's no clauses. I would assume there's a break clause in there that if we get relegated, we can sack him with no compensation. But all being well, I think he's got a 2.5-year deal. But off the back of that, when we did the build-up show on Friday before the Aston Villa game, someone asked us, well, what is success? Come the summer, if Graham Potter was to trigger that 2-year extension, what does he have to achieve? What are you looking for as a West Ham fan from Graham Potter? How do you evaluate West Ham's second half of the season? I thought it was an excellent question, one that I wanted to discuss in depth. So here we are. We're going to have a chat about Graham Potter, our hopes, our expectations, and I want you to get involved as well. So in the comments below, let me know what you are looking for from Graham Potter. How are you judging him between now and the end of the season? Right then, for me, to summarise already, it's an 8-month pre-season. I'm looking at it as he's got 8 months to get ready for the new season. And the reason for that is this season. So let's take a look at the league table. There we are in 14th, 23 points. So we're 7 points ahead of Ipswich Town, who are in the relegation zone. And we are currently 7 points behind Fulham, who are in 9th in the Premier League. So we're just as far away from Ipswich as we are from Fulham. However, I've got this thing of I'm looking over my shoulder rather than up. Aston Villa, currently they're 9 points ahead of us in 8th, which is, we're not catching Villa. So as far as I'm concerned, European football's a no-go. Relegation is unlikely. However, 3-4 losses in a row and suddenly you're in that relegation zone. But flip it round, 3-4 wins in a row, and you're in the top half of the table, and you might be starting to get your hopes up a little bit. I think either are unlikely. I think we're probably going to be flirting around between 12th, 13th, 14th for the remainder of the season, and we will finish up there. To the top of the bottom half of the table is where I expect to finish. And with that in mind, I think there's almost nothing to play for to some extent in regards to results. We're out the Carabao Cup, we're out the FA Cup disappointingly, and had we beat Aston Villa, this video would be different. It would be go all out for the FA Cup, prioritise it, sacrifice the Premier League points. All being well, when the FA Cup comes round, you've got that buffer zone, which we couldn't have. Focus on it. But we're out. Alas, we're gone. So I want Graham Potter to focus on next season to some extent. And when I say some extent, because I know people say, oh, we're not free of relegation. The disclaimer's already done. I've done that bit. But whilst we are lingering the way we are now, and there's enough points between us and Ipswich Town, and we're too far away from the likes of Aston Villa, which is frustrating because this is the season that 8th could have European football. Currently it's 97% chance that 5th is Champions League football. And obviously the side that wins the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup are in the top 5, 6, 7 in the Premier League. It keeps coming down into the Premier League table, and with Newcastle likely to win the Carabao Cup, or I still think Liverpool turn around against Spurs, but with Newcastle, Liverpool, that would mean that 6 would be getting European, well, 6 would be Europa League, 7 would then be Conference League, and then we need to know the FA Cup before 8 is European football or not. So it could be. Anyway, gone off a tangent already. Back on track, Gio. Here we go. So 8-month pre-season as far as I'm concerned, and he's got a few things to do, and there's a few things he can do to make this season a success. And I understand that the biggest way of evaluating a season is where you finish in the table. Have you won silverware? What have you achieved in terms of results? But for me, success can be measured in different ways, especially for a club who doesn't traditionally win silverware like we have. You know, we've won one trophy in the last 43 years. So I think it's harsh and unrealistic to evaluate West Ham's success on, did you win a trophy? That's what you evaluate Man City on, that's what you evaluate Liverpool and Arsenal and Chelsea on. Did you win trophies? If the answer is no, you've not done good enough this season. But I think for Newcastle, Aston Villa, West Ham, I don't think that's a fair question. There could be other ways of achieving success at your club. One of those ways is your academy, your young players. Can you bring them into the first team? And over the last couple of seasons, the answer's been no. Now, obviously, Ollie Scholes played one man a match through the Emirates, watching the game on ITV. I thought he was man of match as well, out of West Ham and Aston Villa, not just West Ham. If Potter can get him playing regular football between now and the season, to me, that is tick. That is a success. If you can bring academy players through into the first team at your football club, that is a huge plus. It may only be Ollie Scholes between now and the end of the season. There is a possibility that we'd see Casey, especially given how light we are at centre-back. There's a possibility we might see Lewis Orford. He travelled with the squad on Thursday night up to Birmingham. Obviously, he wasn't in the squad, but he's been training with the first team since December, so I appreciate Lopetegui will get a lot of criticism. I understand why. But just for context, Caelan Casey's been training with the first team all season. So all season, Casey's been training and following the first team schedule. And Lewis Orford has been doing it for the last month anyway. So he's already integrated into the first team regarding training and going to matches and stuff. So can Potter give them some minutes? I think it'd be difficult. I think, you know, playing one young player's good, but playing three in the same match, I think, is incredibly unlikely. So if Scholes nails down a position, I think the likelihood of Casey or Orford getting game time probably decreases. I think Casey's more likely to play at the minute, given the lack of availability of centre-backs. But if he can keep them involved and keep them around the first team so that come the summer, it's a different scenario for all three players, that's a success as far as I'm concerned. Ollie Scholes' value, this is going to sound a little bit crazy, he's just that one performance has put a few million on Ollie Scholes' transfer market value. That's how I see it anyway. Homegrown, young player, he's come through. Right, the more games he plays, the more he increases in value. And as much as you think I'm mental, if you were to look at Arsenal right now with Nwaneri and Lewis Skelly, if they were to sell those players, they'd be looking at 30, 40, 50 million for them. That's the value Arsenal would be putting on those players' heads. So there's no reason Ollie Scholes isn't worth 3, 4, 5 million already, simply because he started to play for the first team at West Ham. The more he plays, the better. Come the summer, you might find, actually, he's good enough for the first team. Creswell's going, he's out of contract. We might sell Emerson. Great, sell Emerson. We'll bring in a left back. And our two left-sided players going into next season is Ollie Scholes plus the new guy. Success. But the biggest thing I want Graham Potter to do is implement his own style. We've seen glimpses of it on Friday. We've seen glimpses up to 3-4-3 with the box midfield, how he's played at Chelsea, how he played at Brighton, how he played at Swansea. Don't know if that's how he played in Sweden, but he's had that style running through his career, Graham Potter. He knows it. So why would he not implement it at West Ham? He will implement it at West Ham. I have a concern that we don't have the players in the squad to accommodate that. And when I've said that before, people say, oh, who do you think is not good enough? I didn't say they weren't good enough. I meant the squad depth. And I think that was proven on Friday night. We finished the game with Vladimir Coufal playing centre-back. We can't have that. We cannot start a game with Vladimir Coufal playing centre-back. The second half, it took two injuries. In the first half to kill us. Fulkrug went off, Ings came on, Somerville went off, Coufal came on. It killed us completely. 2 subs, dead. And that's the problem. So I don't think we've got the squad depth to play the sort of 3-4-3 formation, to call it that, to keep it simple. We don't have enough centre-backs. Tadebo's injured. Mavpanos has a question mark next to him for his availability for the Fulham game. So we've got Max Kilman, and that's it. Hence why I think Casey may get an opportunity under Graham Potter. But the window's open, so we can bring in 1 or 2 players so that Potter can do what he wants to do going forward. Now, we did see Wan-Bissaka as a third centre-back in the first half against Villa. I liked it. I thought he did well there. I thought he used his role well there, Wan-Bissaka. I thought, considering it's kind of new to him, it didn't look new to him. I thought he just fitted in perfectly. I thought he had a really good game, actually. But if Potter can get his style in, his tactics in, between now and the end of the season and into pre-season, so that come August the 16th, I think, next season, we're ready to rock and roll. We've had 8 months. That's a long, long time. This is why I used to get frustrated with Lopetegui. But come October, oh, you're only 2 months into the season. Whoa, hang on, he's been here since May. It's 5 months he's been here, and we still don't know what we're doing. 8 months is a long time in football. So this is why I'm looking at it as an 8th-month pre-season for Graham Potter. Use this season, use the summer, get ready for next season so that every player in the squad knows exactly what's required of them and how Graham Potter wants to play. He's got to evaluate a lot of the players as well. There's some decisions that will be easy for him, some that he's got to make very soon. So we've got Fabianski, Aaron Creswell, Danny Ings, Vladimir Sufal. Their contracts are up in the summer. Now, put what you want to one side. Graham Potter has to have a look at them and decide what he wants to do with those players. We've got the Michail Antonio situation there, which may be taken out of Potter's hands because he's not going to get a chance to work with Michail Antonio. He'll be able to speak to him, and Potter's obviously got his master's degree in emotional intelligence or whatever it was. So he'll be able to chat with Michail Antonio, and he'll know what Antonio's about. He's come up against Antonio plenty of times as a manager in his career. But it's a potential difficult situation for the club. Do you move him on? Because put what's happened to Michail to one side, I think most maybe, would want Antonio to be released at the end of the season. But the car crash has then changed it a little bit from a footballing issue to almost like a human issue. Well, this guy's been in a horrible accident. Are you really going to make him unemployed? Difficult one there. We've then got his current squad of players that he may not want to keep around next season and may wish to sell. We've then got Carlos Soler on loan. Now, Tadebo's different because there's an obligation in there. We have to buy him for €40 million as long as we don't get relegated. So he's staying. But Carlos Soler certainly isn't. We've supposedly got an option to buy in there for £18, £19 million. Potter's got a few months to decide, do you want him in your team next season or send him back to PSG and we go get someone else instead? So he's got that to decide. Then there's the players out on loan. James Ward-Prowse, Nea Fagerd. Them two in particular for different reasons. Then we've got Freddie Potts, who's doing incredibly well with Portsmouth, but you've got the pre-season again to look at those. Do you want them at West Ham next season or do you want to cash in on them? Then there's the youngsters, George Earthy, Callum Marshall, and I put them in a different bracket because personally, I'd be looking at loaning them out next season. As it stands, I'd be looking to put George Earthy back out on loan. I think his season was just hindered by injuries, so he's not quite got up and running at Bristol City yet. Callum Marshall has been playing regular football at Huddersfield, but just don't think he's quite at the level yet. So I think another season out on loan would be beneficial. Saying that, I wouldn't be against having him back now, given our shortage of strikers. But these are players that he's going to have a little look at and decide. And obviously he's got Maxwell Cornet. But regardless, my point is he's got to evaluate the squad, work out who he wants to work with, who he can work with going into next season. You know, Lucas Paqueta may become unavailable pretty soon as well. There's certain players that we were perhaps planning on selling prior to Graham Potter arriving, which is Mohamed Kudus, maybe Edson Alvarez. Is that still the plan? So I think there's a lot for Graham Potter to work on. So what's success for me? Come the end of the season, I want us to be enjoying watching West Ham again, which is obviously subjective and something you cannot measure through a definitive metric. It's personal opinion, but that's what I want personally. I want to enjoy it. I want us to have an identity. You want to be able to look at it and say, this is how West Ham play. And you may not like it, but I think under Lopetegui there was no identity, and you didn't like it. That's under. It was just a mess under Lopetegui. So if we could approach games where you're quite confident how we're going to play, what we're going to try and achieve, that would be good. And I think he can implement that relatively quickly. I think you've seen it in the first game after one training session. So I think it's only going to get better and better as the season goes on. So that's what I want from him. In terms of the league, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, look at it. Like I said, I'm looking over my shoulder rather than up because of a couple of bad results and suddenly it gets a little bit a bit iffy. But mathematically, it's the same gap between us and Ipswich as it is between us and Fulham. However, I think we're more likely to end up beside Ipswich than I do beside Fulham in the league. As long as we stay away from the relegation battle, I've written this season off already. It's almost like season's over in regards to the league table, but it's not in regards to other things. Playing all these Skulls, I genuinely feel like people are buzzing about it. We're now into Monday. The last couple of days, I think people have been happy to see an academy player because we've not had any. This is the first season I remember as long as I've been alive that West Ham haven't registered an academy player with the Premier League. Before this, we obviously had Ben Johnson. Before that, with Declan Rice. Before that, with Mark Noble. And that's where it's a little bit skew with because it's Mark Noble is such a long period. You have to go all the way back to Mark Noble's career before he's no longer in it. But even then, you had the likes of James Tompkins, Jack Collison, Junior Stanislas. There was always players from the academy. They weren't necessarily always great, or did they make it? But there was players there that you could point at and say, that's one of ours. And we didn't have that this season. I find it very sad. And now we've got all these scars. I think people are really clinging to it. It's almost like a beacon of hope that some players could come through. Because every football fan likes to see their club bring players through from the academy. It's not a West Ham thing. We're the club with it on the carpet in front of the tunnel. But we put it there. No one put it there. It wasn't an award given to us by UEFA. They didn't say, here you go, you've achieved this. We've just put it there ourselves. Anyone could do that. Man United could do it. Do you know what? Man United would be more within their right to do it because they've got that ridiculously long record of how many years it's been since, I don't know, how it's decades. Chelsea's academy has been far better in the last 10 years. The Man City's academy is spitting out talent that's not good enough. Man City, but can walk into most Premier League teams at the minute. So I think we're looking at all this kind of this beacon of hope that youngsters can get a chance at West Ham. And I think that's the thing, chance. I can't have been the only one that saw Mubama starting for Man City and thought, really? He didn't really get a crack with us, and here he is. Now, listen, he's got a long way to go. Scoring against Salford with Doku and Grealish and whatever, Champions League players setting you up. His movement looked good. I thought his first touch was a bit dodgy. I don't know if he'll make it at Man City, but it was a good start for him. But it was hard to watch it, and I think could have done with him on Friday. I'd rather he came off the bench than Danny Ings. But there we are. So I guess it sounds a bit like a crap answer, doesn't it? So how do you determine Graham Potter? Well, I don't know how long's a piece of string. But my answer is he's got an 8-month pre-season. We started this one, and we weren't ready for it. We had plenty of friendlies, but there was just not really much of a plan coming into it. The transfer market was open. There was, James Ward-Prowse played in our first game and then disappeared. We need to stop that. We can't have that. But we've got a big summer coming up. There's a lot of change coming at West Ham United. We've still got the off-the-pitch things to sort. Is Kyle McCauley coming? Is Dan Ashworth coming? Is Tim Steidten going to be here in the summer? But that's not really Graham Potter's part of it. That's up for David Sillen to get his finger out and to sort all that side of it. But for Potter, make West Ham enjoyable again. Implement your tactics. And make sure that next season we are ready to try and get European football again. Ambitious, perhaps, but if you get it right this season in the summer, you get it right, that's what we could aim for next season. Karen Beatty said he's the man to win a silverware. I bloody hope so. 8 months, get prepared for next season. Anyway, I'm off ski. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll be back later on. Looking forward to seeing what you all say as well, because everyone's going to have different answers on this one. But if you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up. Subscribe to Hammers Chat. Myself and Gonzo will catch you later with our full match preview, where we'll be wondering, do we even have enough players?